Welcome to the stage in the LEC studio for the draw show of Worlds 2021. 22 teams from 11 regions are waiting to find out their opponents for the tournament in Reykjavik, Iceland. This is the first Worlds ever to take place in Iceland, but earlier this year we also watched MSI from this arena, ending with RNG lifting the trophy after a 5-game series. On the 5th of October we return to this beautiful country for the play-in stage of Worlds 2021. Worlds is the pinnacle of League of Legends, the best teams from all regions across the globe gathering for a spectacle filled with rivalries, superstars, great plays, and historic moments. Before we get to the draw itself, let's get a reminder of the format and the rules for Worlds 2021.
The moment you've been waiting for all year is finally here. It's time for Worlds. To get ready, let's break down the 2021 tournament format. 22 teams will face off in 3 stages: play-ins, groups, and knockouts. Play-ins will feature 10 teams hungry to reach groups. The first seeded team from Brazil's CB LOL, Japan's LJL, Oceania's LCO, the Commonwealth of Independent States LCL, Latin America's LLA, and Turkey's TCL. The second seeded team from Southeast Asia's PCS, the third seeded team from North America's LCS, and the fourth seeded teams from China's LPL and Korea's LCK. These 10 teams will be randomly drawn into 2 groups of 5, and each team will play 1 game against every other team in their group. The top team in each group will advance to the group stage. 3rd and 4th place teams will play a best of 5, and winners will challenge the other group's 2nd seed for the last 2 remaining positions. The group stage will bring 12 new competitors to the table. The top 3 seeded teams from Korea's LCK, China's LPL, and Europe's LEC. The top 2 seeded teams from North America's LCS, and the top seeded team from Southeast Asia's PCS, alongside the 4 play-in qualifiers. These 16 teams will be split into 4 groups, with each playing against every other team in their group twice. The top 2 teams in each group after that will advance to the knockout stage. The remaining 8 teams will compete in a best-of-5 single elimination bracket, progressing through quarterfinals and semifinals. At finals, the last 2 teams standing will play a best-of-5 series. The winner will be crowned the 2021 League of Legends World Champions.
To conduct the Worlds 2021 draw, I'd like to welcome 4-time LEC champion and Worlds 2019 finalist G2 esports jungler Jankos to the stage.
Hello everyone. Super excited to be here. I'm very happy that I still got to be a part of Worlds, kinda.
You are. We're super happy to have you. I'm expecting some spicy draws from you, but let's see. Before we draw the 2 play-ins groups, we're going to run through the seedings. We have 10 teams that are divided into 2 pools. The Pool 1 seeds are LNG, Hanwha Life Esports, Cloud9, and Beyond Gaming. Pool 2 consists of the Red Canids, the Unicorns of Love, Detonation Focus Me, Infinity Esports, Peace, and Galatasaray Esports. We will draw these teams into 2 play-in groups, alternating assigning between Group A and Group B. With that said, we are starting with the Pool 1 seeds, so Jankos, please draw our first team to go into Group A.
Sure.
Hanwha Life Esports into Group A.
No one expected Hanwha Life to be here. After an extremely lackluster regular split, they made it into the regional gauntlet exclusively on their great spring performance. And as it turns out, that was all they needed. Dispatching relentlessly of Liv Sandbox and regular split highlight team Nongshim Red Force, even T1 was taken to 5 games in the final game of Gauntlet. With Chovy looking revitalized and Death playing the best league he has all year, who knows where Hanwha will end up, as long as they can hold on to the top side of the map. And incredible.
You can go ahead and draw the next team from Pool 1 to go into Group B. The first team to grow into Group B is Beyond Gaming.
In less than 12 months of their organization's creation, Beyond Gaming has achieved what every team strives for in making the World Championship. A lot of credit goes to Doggo, who fans should remember for his breakout performance at MSI with PSG Talon. After that, he returned to the PCS and turned into this lane-dominant force for Beyond Gaming. And with PCS's success earlier in the year at MSI, we're excited to see if Beyond Gaming can join PSG Talon and get 2 teams in the group stage at Worlds and capture some of that old PCS magic.
Go ahead and draw the next team from Pool 1 to slot into Group A. LNG into Group A.
The biggest underdogs of the year, led by the king of the jungle himself, finally makes it to Worlds. LNG will make their international debut after starting from the first round of LPL playoffs and playing 7 series back-to-back. All of this has been off the back of Tarzan, who's been the foundation of this team and the best jungler in LPL this split. With carry top laner Ale and high impact support Iwandi behind him, Tarzan and LNG are looking to live up to the other dark horse runs that LPL teams have been able to put up so many times in the past.
And now the final Pool 1 team, go ahead. Cloud9 into Group B.
No surprises, Steve. This is the 4th team drawn. Cloud9 made headlines this year, signing Perks as their mid laner, maybe the greatest Western League of Legends player of all time. But this team has been up and down. Obviously, Spring Split champions. MSI, they had some good results, they had some bad results. Perks has had some good games and some bad games. Fudge in the top lane, Vulcan at support, they have been consistent and outstanding. I need to see how the mid and jungle plays from Cloud9 to see if they are going to make a deep run at Worlds.
Time to draw the first team out of Pool 2 to join HLE and LNG in Group A. Go ahead. The first team is Infinity in Group A.
Infinity Esports are a team we saw not long ago at MSI. Sadly, it was a weak performance, only a single game won at play-ins against Detonation Focus Me with a support sub on the roster. They're hoping this time around, though, it's going to be a much better look for the squad here at Worlds. Back-to-back champions, obviously, we're looking largely at top lane. We're looking at Bugax and how much he can get done. They're going to play around him pretty aggressively. He's going to get the jungle attention. They're going to get Rift Heralds. It's about top lane.
Go ahead and draw the next team. The Unicorns of Love.
The Unicorns of Love will once again represent the CIS at Worlds. Since 2019, the Unicorns have represented the LCL at 3 international events, making this their 4th. UL have become a mainstay, and teams always showcase respect towards the organization as a team that you can't underestimate. However, at MSI, the team struggled, failing to get out of groups. With a new addition to the bot lane in Argonaut, the team is looking to make up for past failures and find success once more. The mainstay Nomans will be a player worth watching, as he's often difficult to ignore when on the international stage.
4 teams left. Go ahead and draw the next team for Group A. Peace going into Group A.
With measured aggression and an impressive playoffs run, Peace dominantly swept MSI fan-favorite representatives PandaNet GG in a 3-0 finals. A well-rounded team with international experience in Tali and Badib centered around their fresh bot laner Violet, they excel at early objective control through proactive roams and snowballing around their support. It has been a stellar year for OCE's individual players around the world. Can their region's representatives live up to the hype as well?
Go ahead and draw the next team, Jankos. Galatasaray in Group B.
This year's TCL representative is Galatasaray Esports. Galatasaray is one of the most successful organizations in Turkish football history, but this is the first time we've seen them on the international stage. The roster consists of some familiar faces and new faces to this international stage. Bololu returns to Worlds after their defeat to the Unicorns last year and will be looking for revenge and another shot at the group stage. Turkey has not made it out of play-in since 2017. Can this roster be the game changer to bring them back to former glories?
Almost there. Go ahead and draw the next team for Group A, the final team in that group. Red Canids are the final team in Group A.
Red Canids from Brazil representing the CB LOL. This is an exciting team to look for. Top, jungle, and mid are all rookies. This is a team that got better and better over the course of the year, from a 6th place regular season finish to a 9-2 run through the playoffs to win the title. It's the first time we're seeing Red Canids since back in 2017 MSI, and it is spicy. Aegis in the jungle is incredibly dominant. This team is bloody, they get kills, and they've got some exciting fresh faces.
Go ahead and finish the draw with the last team. Detonation Focus Me slotting into Group B. It's upside down.
Detonation Focus Me is back. While they were unable to make it out of Group's MSI, they were still able to perform above expectations from the international community, grabbing a huge win over C9, with a substitute support nonetheless. Now with their full lineup, the LJL representatives created the strongest roster the region has available in terms of individual talent. And they won't be satisfied unless they are able to turn their wealth of experience and domestic skill into a group stage appearance.
We have our 2 groups for the play-ins, which will start on the 5th of October. We are going to take a minute to reset the stage here, and then we will draw the groups for the group stage.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to run down the line and I'm going to get your quick impressions of the groups and what stands out to you. So, Freak, starting off with you, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Group B is arguably the closest in skill of the groups. I've actually had pretty high hopes for all the teams in that one, where I think any one of them on the right draw could have that 3rd place finish and then go in and kind of fight across the side. So there's a thought here where I think because of that crossplay thing, Hanwha Life should be a little bit afraid of who they might fight out of this group.
Okay. Jordan, hit me.
I think Group A, the emerging region teams, got to be a bit afraid. But come on, we're all looking at Tarzan versus Chovy, LNG versus Hanwha Life. I do think LNG is more rounded, so probably our favorites. But we've all seen Chovy pull off some miracles before.
All right, finally, Chronicler, you've got 20 seconds. Hit me.
It's Tarzan Chovy. It's Tarzan Chovy. Like, I don't know what to tell you. That is a matchup that everyone should be excited for. Can't wait to see those guys face off against one another.
It's certainly going to be an interesting one. I cannot wait for the play-ins draw, but very quickly we're going to be jumping into the primary group draw. So without further ado, and a last look at the play-ins draw, let's go back to Shox on stage.
Welcome back, everyone, to the draw. It is time for the group draw. And in the group draw, the Pool 1 seeds contain the top seeds of the LPL, the LEC, the LCK, and the PCS. Pool 2 contains the top seed of the LCS and the second seed from the LPL, the LEC, and the LCK. And Pool 3 contains the second seed of the LCS with the third seed of the LEC, LCK, and LPL. We will draw from Pool 1 first, assigning each drawn team in order to groups A, B, C, and then D. In the case that teams are drawn into a group that already has representative from their region, that will be invalid, and then they will move on. While drawing from Pool 2 and 3, if a team is drawn for a group that already contains representative from their region, or in the event that the draw could cause future invalid draws, they will instead be added to the next group in which they are eligible for. We are going to start with the Pool 1 seeds. So Jankos, go ahead and draw the first team to go into Group A. Damwon Kia into Group A.
After a rough loss to RNG at MSI, it took a long time before Damwon Kia resembled that World Championship form. In a split marked for the team by lane swaps, off-meta drafts and individual underperformance, it wasn't until the final weeks of playoffs that the team really started to get back to form. However, during playoffs, we saw the re-emergence of one of the best teams in the world yet again, with refound diversity in draft and Barrel in particular returning to form. Having gone through a transformative year and hungry after their MSI loss, the world champions are looking ready and poised to defend their title.
Next up, the first team to go into Group B. Go ahead. EDG into Group B.
EDG is the most domestically dominant organization in the history of the LPL. And after 3 years of not making Worlds, 2021 is finally the year they're able to add to that legacy again. EDG's big difference maker has to be Viper, who uses dominant laning phase and immaculate team fighting to join veterans Scout and Mako to bring EDG another championship. As the current LPL champions, EDG are one of the favorites for taking home the Summoners Cup and adding their name to the history books. EDG coming in as one of the strong favorites.
Next up, the next Pool 1 seed to go into Group C. Go ahead. PSG into Group C.
The Kings of the PCS return to the international stage after putting their region back on the map with a top 4 finish at MSI. PSG have the most decorated player in the region's history, and Maple guiding the team to a high-tempo, high-kill playstyle that can catch anyone off guard. Now with Unified back on the roster, PSG are at full power, and this team is looking to bring the same spirit from their last international appearance to make it past groups once again.
Go ahead and draw the final team out of Pool 1. The Mad Lions go into Group D.
The first seed from Europe, Mad Lions, will be looking to change the narrative coming into this year's Worlds. Last year, this org was the first European organization ever to not qualify from the play-in stage. Coming into 2020, they have done nothing but dominate. Back-to-back LEC titles, a semi-final at MSI versus world champions Damwont that went to all 5 games, and now a representative as Europe's best. The pressure is high for these young players as over the last 3 years, semi-finals appearance for Europe's first seed is the expectation. Can Humanoid, the newly acclaimed best mid in EU, lead his team to success, or will they crumble under the pressure?
Let's start with Pool 2. Go ahead and draw the first team, Jankas. FPX.
2019 World Champions FunPlus Phoenix are back to reclaim their title. Since adding Nuggery to the roster, FPX have been on an absolute rampage this year with an extremely aggressive, skirmish-heavy playstyle, leading them to back-to-back LPL finals in 2021. All of this off the back of Dwinby having the best season of his career and picking up yet another Summer Split MVP award. With 5 former world champions on this roster, anything less than a second world title for FPX will be a disappointment. With their current form, it's very easy to believe in the Phoenix.
FPX goes into Group A. Time for the next team out of Pool 2. Hunter Thieves.
100 Thieves won their first ever LCS title after making the finals back in their first ever LCS split, and that vengeance against TL was sweet. This is an exciting roster. To me, there's 3 headliners here. Closer in the jungle is truly outstanding. He and Abadaga pair up and they play around the bot lane incredibly well. FBI and Huhi, you might remember him from an MSI final as a mid laner. He is an outstanding support player now. That bot lane duo is amazing. They get help and they convert on those leads. This is an exciting team. They're very good.
100 Thieves confirmed in Group B together with EDG. Draw the next team, please, Jankas. Fnatic.
Fnatic will be Europe's second seed this year. No stranger to the international stage, this will be Fnatic's 9th appearance at the World Championship. What's even crazier is that in those 8 appearances, Fnatic has made it out of groups 7 times. Week 2 Fnatic is something that every European fan will have heard of and looks forward to, as the organization looks to continue their incredible international legacy. However, with a brand new roster, many are still trepidatious. Whippo role swapping to jungle, a rookie top laner with Adam, can they really compete with the best? Only time will tell.
Fnatic lands in Group C. Go ahead, Jankos, for the last team out of Pool 2. Genji.
Recent times have not been kind to Genji. The last week of summer they looked deflated and unable to maintain their often terrifying regular split form, and unlike spring, where they were still able to take a decisive victory over T1 and reach the finals, they went out unceremoniously. It has now been a good amount of time since we have seen Genji, and knowing the depth of experience and skill on this team, I expect them to look revitalized and show us a convincing performance during the group stage. The underestimated Genji is the most dangerous.
Genji lands in Group D. That means it's time for the Pool 3 teams, Jankos. Go ahead. Rogue.
The third and final seed for Europe this year is Rogue. Last year, Rogue was seeded into a difficult group, and while expectations were low, many did not expect them to finish last in their group. Coming into 2021, Rogue looked dominant during the regular season and were expected to make back-to-back finals. However, the organization continued to fall short. After losing 3-0 to Fnatic in the semi-finals, expectations once again looked to be low once more as European fans turn their attention to the other 2 seeds. Regardless, the team looks to change the narrative and turn heads at this year's Worlds, with Hansama and Inspired being players to watch.
Rogue lands in Group A with FPX and Damwon Kia. Go ahead and draw the next team, Jankos. RNG.
The reigning MSI champions come into Worlds with a lot to prove. After Xiaohu's crazy role swap in spring led them to an LPL title and an MSI championship, RNG failed to defend their LPL crown in summer. But in the regional qualifier, they bounced back with a dominating performance, and they are still coming into Worlds as one of the biggest teams to fear. With Ming playing heavily around top lane star Xiaohu, we're going to see if these 2-time MSI champions will be able to lead RNG to their very first World Championship victory and continue with RNG being the most successful LPL team internationally.
As RNG would be joining a group that already has an LPL representative in Group B, they move on to Group C. Go ahead, Jankos. 2 teams left. Doing great. Team Liquid.
Team Liquid is a team that many thought would win the LCS title this time around. However, only 2nd place. That said, their road to victory can still exist here. Alphari was the big pickup on the roster. He is an outstanding top laner, especially in the early to mid game. The man demands resources, and boy does he spend them well. He is record-shatteringly lane dominant in the LCS and in his old career in the LEC as well. Look out for Liquid to play around top lane, to play around Alphari, and to get him to take over the map from there.
TL lands in Group D because there was already an LCS representative in Group B, leaving us with the last team to be drawn. Go ahead, Jankos. T1.
The greatest player of all time is back at Worlds. Faker, flanked by some of the best individual talent we have in the LCK, has made his way back. Despite being the LCK's 3rd seed, they have shown incredible highs when the early game goes according to plan. They're able to snowball the entirety of the map, rallied around their star mid lane and bolstered by their aggressive bot lanes. If they can avoid some of the inconsistencies and draft we saw during the regular split, will we possibly see Faker hold another trophy?
T1 lands in Group B, and that concludes the group draw. Thank you so much, Jankos. Phenomenal job.
Thank you.
And the group stage will start on the 11th of October with 8 teams advancing to the quarterfinals. Thank you so much for joining us for the draw show, and we'll see you in Iceland.
Whew. Okay, so there will be more discussion as the show continues. That does wrap up the group draw. Loved watching Jankos' expressions throughout the entire thing. But gentlemen, I'm going to quickly get your quick thoughts once again. You can take a little bit more time if you want. But Freak, what is the first thing that stands out to you?
The first thing that stands out was Jankos' face was the opposite of my face when he drew Rogue. I knew after the first 2 sets, like either Rogue or TL is going into that Group A with Fun Plus Phoenix down 1. And when he just deflated, I was just cackling. Like, I wasn't loud just in case the mics weren't muted, but I was like, I did it! It's Rogue and not TL. And then I realized it's still T1 and EDG, and it's not any better.
Okay. Lyric, hit me. What were your first thoughts? What hit you seeing the group's draw?
You know, everyone's going to talk about Dom1 versus VX, Nuggery against Dom1, all that stuff, but I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to come out for Freak and say, I'm looking at that Group D and saying, I think Team Liquid can get out of it. You're up against Genji, I think a very beatable team for the LCS, and LCS is feeling good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think overall, we're happy with the group draw.
Okay. Chronicler, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking here? Are you stressed for Genji?
Well, no, I don't know where this sentiment comes from, that it's going to be easy beatings for the LCS. I feel like this happens whenever Genji doesn't have the greatest at times, and then they bounce back. I'm very excited to see Core JJ and Ruler face off. I'm actually excited for Group B. I think that EDG taking on T1, regardless of like outcome, is just such a cool matchup between 2 incredibly storied orgs. And having them face up with Worlds makes it even better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if we actually go back through history, EDG and T1 have been in the same group so many times before. There is a lot of history in front of us. I definitely felt bad for Rogue. In the thing that I wrote for them, I was sitting there saying, they got a hard group last year. They basically had the same one this year. So it's definitely going to be a tough one for them. But we're going to talk a lot more about the groups in a quick second. But for now, we have to have a quick break. So we'll give you all the takeaways in just a few minutes right after this short break. So make sure you don't go anywhere, because there's going to be a lot more discussion, a lot more banter, and a lot more fun coming your way in just a bit.
We now have our draw for the groups and the play-ins of Worlds 2021. I don't know what happened here in terms of first reactions because I was walking over, but we have a lot of time to get into it. I want to start with the play-ins because that's also going to inform maybe a bit more contextually into the groups, which teams could end up joining the groups we already have. Freak, let me go to you first in terms of the play-ins and the draw.
Sure. So I think this is actually, I would say, from an LCS perspective, I think the best possible draw. So what it comes down to is the fact that I think not only can Cloud9 win their entire group, but even if they only get second, they will have a really good shot against the 3rd or 4th from the opposite side. I think Group B is basically stacked in terms of the 3rd, 4th place area. Like all the teams, I think, that are threatening in the best of 5. I think they're all on this side of this. So, Cloud9 Beyond, I think is going to be a fun fight overall. And then even if Cloud9 does drop down, I think it's going to be, a good shot otherwise. So I think it's going to be kind of interesting because it means that I do have some level of threat towards whoever gets second in Group A. I think the competition, if you get second, you have to kind of play the cross-group BO5. That is a little bit threatening for what I assume to be Hanwha Life getting second in that group.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I understand now. Because if I understand correctly, C9, assuming LNG and Hanwha Life finish top 2, you as Cloud9 would end up playing Infinity, Peace, or Red Cannons, right? That's what,
which we're going to win the best of 5 then, right?
Right. I understand where your confidence comes from now. That makes almost
sense.
Well,
only, if you're number 1, you go through, right? So.
Yes, if you're number 1.
Yeah, of course, right? If you top the group, it's great.
Yes. Because I was going to say, when I look at Group B, typically the teams that you always fear are the CIS and Turkey. right? These are the two teams that traditionally in play-ins actually have a very strong showing, and the fact that they're both on the same side of the group, I think makes Group B that much scarier, and the fact that DFM now kind of have this completed super team that they've been building over the years. I think that Group B, in terms of like upset potential, is very high. But when it comes to the best of fives, one of those teams is going to have to play against LNG or Hanwha Life unless they can sneak into the
Probably. Let's say probably, right? We don't know. So, Chronicler, you were a bit, I want to say like hot and cold, not really sure what Hanwha Life could bring. How confident are you that they will make it out of the play-ins at least?
I still have a lot of confidence in them, especially if they are able to maintain the form that we saw of them in the Gauntlet. I think that Group A is very top-heavy, and I think that the issues that Hanwha Life might run into are a lot harder to exploit for play-ins teams. So especially within that group, I'm not too worried about them. Once it comes to actually facing LNG, obviously, that's one I'm going to look closely to, because I think the top half of the map there, Wheeler and Tarzan especially, is something that personally I'd be terrified about. So it depends to what extent you can like kind of draw them into the Hanwha Life carousel where drafts are made up and topside doesn't exist.
Jordan, you had a lot of faith in LNG before the play-in draw. I suspect nothing has changed.
Yeah, I think just looking at LNG surprised ever since LPL playoffs with how good they are. I will say, not just for LNG, but any LPL teams, I'm always a bit afraid of best of ones because LPL teams aren't the most disciplined. But I do think LNG got, I'll say, pretty lucky in terms of, I agree with what both Vedis and Freak said in terms of, I think all the stacked emerging region teams are on the bottom half of the bracket. And then it's just all about looking at LNG versus Hanwha. I do think LNG is heavily favored. We've actually seen the top lane matchup in the LPL before. Morgan, Hanwha's top laner, last year was in the LPL on WE. I think Ali's going to completely destroy him. I think Tarzan will have his way with Willer. And then, again, we're going to see what Chovy can do on Hanwha to try to offset all of that.
For sure. Of course, we don't have representatives from the other region. I know you're half an LJL representative as well. But of course, we can never count anyone out. That is the nature, as Jordan also talked about, of best of ones. Anything can really happen. We have seen, since we've had this system, it's been hard for the teams to make like the final hurdle when they do get into the best of fives, when we talk about not the top dogs in the group. Do you see possibility for the upset here?
Oh, I definitely do. I think that what's in particular, when I keep looking at Group B, I think that the fact that UOL have surprised before, the fact that Turkey always seems to send strong representatives regardless of the year, the fact that DFM have built this roster, and Beyond and PSG Talon, they were 5-5 during playoffs. Okay, so if you rate PSG at all, you should rate Beyond as well. Because watching their games, I feel like that they can go toe-to-toe with the PCS first seed, and I think that they're a team worth respecting. So I think Group B, I don't think it's going to be an easy ride for anyone, and because it's only single round robin, it's going to be scary. I think Group B is a very scary one when it comes to those best of ones.
All right, we'll see what happens indeed, and we're going to move on to talk about the group stage. We know 3 teams already in each group, then to be supplemented with the teams coming out of the play-ins. Yeah, I missed the initial reaction, so I'd love to take it back up, and maybe you guys can talk a bit more about it. Freak, talk to me about where the LCS has landed.
My initial reaction is thank you, Jankos. As far as I'm concerned, this is one of the best group draws that was possible. There was the coin flip of was it going to be Rogue or was it going to be Team Liquid in the group of death with Fun plus Phoenix and Damwon Kia, and it came up Rogue, so thank you, Jankos. I think 100 Thieves have a decent group for themselves. Obviously, EDG and T1 are tough opponents, but Team Liquid look well poised. The one bracketology thing I want to bring up, by the way, is that if the expected teams go through from play-ins, Cloud9 are guaranteed Group A because there's only one place many of those other teams can go. So Cloud9, if they want a really, really good bracket, they want to see Hanwha Life knocked out so that they could take their spot in Group C.
Maybe they can knock them out. That would obviously be very poetic as well.
That'd be even better.
Chronicler, talk to me about Group D. I want to talk about Gen G in combination with MAD and TL specifically.
I think that TL is stylistically a good matchup for Gen G. I think MAD is one that as a Gen G fan would terrify me. Historically, I think Gen G have had a really big difficulty, especially once it comes to like the high pressure matches against good aggressive European teams, and I don't expect it to be any different here. I do think that TL, based on what I've seen thus far, is if we see, again, Gen G return to form, which I do expect after the break that they've had, should still be outclassed in a lot of lanes. We've seen BDD absolutely pop off, especially during, I think, the group stage. So in that regard, I do think that they should still be favored to make it out there. But ahead of Mad Lions, that's a tall ask.
We'll see indeed. Jordan, let's go through the motions and assume that LNG makes it through. Then they land in Group D. Then we have LNG in Group D, we have EDG in Group B, and we have FPX drawn with Damwon into Group A. How do you feel about the chances as a whole then on the LPL?
Yeah, I mean, coming into any event like this, I never really fear for an LPL team getting out. I think LNG, is the one that if they go into that Group D, I think, again, NA Hopium here, very winnable for Team Liquid to make it out of that group, probably in second. But when I look at EDG in their group, when I look at RNG having to go up against teams like Fnatic and FPX against Damwon, I think all these groups are winnable for the LPL teams. I'm really excited to see especially that Group A matchup because you have both Khan and Nuguri going up against their former teams. So I think it's going to be a little bit personal.
Oh, it's personal. It's going to be phenomenal. From the side of EU, you know what? I actually like it. The harder the groups are, the more chances I give the teams to get out, and then they don't meet those teams in their groups for a while. So I'm disappointed. I'm kidding. Is this going to age well? Who knows?
So I think that, in my opinion, Fnatic looks good to get out of this group because I think either C9 goes in that group, or as Freak was saying, I think they can't, which means that Hanwha Life, if play-ins go the way that they're expected, then Hanwha Life would slot into that group. And then the question becomes, what does Hanwha look like? And how strong are they? But I'm very much in agreement with Lyric that I think the RNG should quite comfortably top this group. But the scary thing is the nature of best of ones and Fnatic's playstyle and the way in which they approach the game. Like, in best of ones, they can be very chaotic and they can create a lot of chaos. And Group C, I would say, is one of those groups that, similar to last year, exactly Group C, when all the teams seemed very close, anyone realistically could make it out. It's simply a matter of which team ends up showing up on the day. I think it's a very close group.
Yeah, Fnatic and RNG in a group, we've seen it.
Yeah, there's so much history.
Seen it a couple of times, and then spare a word for Rogue.
It was nice. I hope you have a nice trip to Iceland.
Beautiful, I hear.
The views, I've heard, are wonderful.
Really great.
Make sure you visit the...
What did Rogue do, guys? Tell me, as a non-EU
okay.
what did Rogue do?
He just got his revenge.
That's actually a great point, because maybe not everyone who's watching watch a lot.
Rogue, during the regular season, have actually looked very dominant throughout the year. They tied for first in spring, and then they ended up first in summer. But then coming into playoffs, they almost lost to Misfits. If it wasn't for Inspired and his pentakill on Viego, they might not actually have even qualified. And then on top of that, when they played up against Fnatic, they were 3-0'd. And I feel like the problems that have existed for Rogue were finally really exploited in the playoffs here in summer. And it ultimately comes down to their mid game. They have a very tried and true style, which is draft strong laners, enable Inspired, make sure that Han Sama gets a lot of the gold, and then these two are your primary carries. But in a meta that's very revolved around your support working with your jungle and your mid laner, this team doesn't have that same level of synergy, and that's where a lot of the concerns for this team come from. And I think that in a group like this, where I think that they have, with Doinby and Showmaker being the two best mids in the world, I'm just not that optimistic.
I mean, I think it's fine to be like, all right, what's going to happen here? But they also carry that weight of last time around. They're for sure going to want to be good. So we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt until they play. A couple of more things. The world champion returning, T1. Finally, they're back at Worlds Freak. What do you make of their group so far? EDG, 100 Thieves, and T1. And let me think.
Yeah.
Who would slot in?
Expectation would be beyond, I think, maybe? Coming in on this one. Yeah. I think is the read based on how the brackets are working out. Again, if expected results come through. Again, I'll say from the NA perspective, one of the better groups 100 Thieves could get. I know if you watch a lot of LCK, you'll know that the second, third, fourth place teams out of LCK, like, they are inconsistent. So, hey, on a good day, it's Faker. and they're going to win. On a bad day, it's Faker and 4 wards, and we know what 4 wards in a mid laner looks like. It's the LCS. We've seen this, happen time and time again with good mid laners. So, that can be the run here. EDG, obviously, winning the LPL title, have had their own share of stumbles, but obviously a very, very good team. EDG are just my pick for topping the group. T1, I think for most people say, hey, that's probably the number 2 team right here, but I think 100 Thieves really can shine. Their best days are really, really outstanding. I wouldn't be shocked at a 5-1 record for 100 Thieves. Like, that's realistic. Yes, it's the top end of realistic, but that's a realistic showing for 100 Thieves out of this group. If we're going to keep the LCS perspective going, where they split with EDG and T1 just doesn't quite show up.
Hey, Freak, T1 may have Faker. 100 Thieves has Faker.
Faker Daga!
I mean, enough said. I did see...
He's good!
He's great!
Riot buffed Karma! If you didn't watch week 1 of the LCS summer split, he played 3 straight Karma games. They just played around closer, and it looked good. Like, Abidaga has a really, really good champion pool. He can play the assassins. Akali's probably out of meta. There's not a lot of great mid lane assassins outside LeBlanc, but he can play full support. I think Karma's actually probably a decent option at this point in time.
Freak has so much
closer's going to pop out. It's going to be fun to watch.
I love it. I did see Chronicler smirking at the call of, this group and how it's going to play out.
I just want to object to Faker and 4 wards. If you have one of the best supports in the entire world on your team, I don't know if that's ever fully justified. I do agree with you that T1 have shown some inconsistencies, but I think it's important to note the context in which these inconsistencies happen, right? I think that after last MSI, there was a lot of talk about the LCK being a one-team region, and while I think Damwon are still by far the strongest, we've seen a really big resurgence of LCK levels overall. And the fact that T1 not only made it to finals, but took a game of the Damwon looking as good as they did, I think is a clear-cut sign that, while I don't know if they'll pull ahead of EDG, I would be shocked if they don't make it out of this group.
It's so cool. And I just am reminded again of the fact that, the LCK having 4 seeds and the LPL having 4 seeds, that is just, it's like a mountain to climb, it seems, for any other region, right, Vedius? Sure. But we have some great groups, and hopefully with the meta changes and whatnot, some explosive play.
Yeah, and, everyone's gotten to talk about their groups. Mad Lions.
Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
Free! It's free. I love it. Okay? I'm really excited for this group for Mad Lions. I think that Mad Lions' actual biggest issue has been their early game, and I don't think either of those teams are as capable as punishing Mad's early game as other teams would be that they could have gone up against. So I'm actually really optimistic for Mad. This may come back to bite me, but this is probably their best group. Of course, coming into the quarterfinals, if they make it there, their opposition will then be very, very difficult. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what this team can do. I know that they obviously couldn't qualify from play-ins last year, but in particular, Humanoid is the player that I think a lot of us are very excited to see back on the international stage. He has grown so much as a player over the years, and this year, and this split especially, he's cemented himself as the best mid in Europe in terms of what he does in lane, how he roams around the map, and with the introduction of El Yoya by his side and Kaiser looking phenomenal, like, this is a team that Europeans can get excited about and should definitely be one of the favorites to get out of the group.
Oh, absolutely so. The favorites indeed, but we'll see how the cookie crumbles, because it never crumbles the way you think it's going to. With that, I'm going to leave it to a last note from every single one of our analysts to represent their region. Freak, you can start. The word to the NA faithful before Worlds.
Listen, the NA faithful, this is one of the best draws we could have seen. Realistically, if you still have LCS Hopium, this is a decent look for this year. I think every one of these teams can have a look where you're like, hey, I can see the run going. We've seen favorites crash and burn, and we've seen teams that are underdogs have the good run. So I think this is a solid draw. I think this is a good year for the LCS. And if you believed at any point during the year, you can still believe now.
Absolutely. Jordan, the LPL.
I think any draw would be a good draw for the LPL in the end. But if you're an LPL fan, I think that the great thing about this draw, we got a lot of sexy matchups. We got FPX going against Damwon. We got T1 going against RNG. And, speaking of RNG, I'm just going to end the note of following Freak's boldness from earlier, predicting Team Liquid to win Worlds. RNG are winning Worlds this year. It's pretty much locked and loaded. They already won MSI. Let's go LPL.
Chronicler, the LCK.
Yeah, I don't know how RNG or Liquid are winning Worlds when it's clearly going to be a Damwon Kia versus T1 finals. I don't know what you guys are on about, but obviously that's happening.
Oh, no.
Free
that's a quarterfinal at best.
As could be.
Yeah. Here in Europe, we're usually realistic.
I'm very optimistic about the chances for T1 and Damwon and Hanwha. If they do well in play-ins, I could actually see them make a deep surprise one as well.
Thaddeus, what's the bare minimum? Is it 2 teams in semifinals?
All right, Europe. There's no G2, so there's no chance. You guys know the drill. We don't stand a chance. You know, you're going to have to pick your favorite LPL team to support. You know, it's just how it is. Except for the fact that we're going to smash everyone. Got him! Easy debate. Europe. Fnatic is easily going to make it out of their group. and who? Exactly. Fnatic, top of their group with Mad Lions, clearly knocking everyone else out of their team. Rogue, they look like underdogs, but actually they're called Rogue. Clear backstab. While FPX and DK fight for second, Rogue will be sitting top of their group. So Europe, we'll see you in semis. Easy worlds.
I think I'm gonna have to sign off. I don't have any oxygen. It's all hopium. I don't know.
Hopium everywhere.
What's going on? And the same over there in NA and in Korea and in China, it seems like. In any case, that was all from us here in Berlin. Thank you so much to my analysts for previewing the World Championship. It's really getting started now, everyone. In 2 weeks, we're headed to Reykjavik and the start of Worlds 2021. See you then.